Before we concluded our final tutorial on MIDI, there were a few things that I wanted to cover that we didn't cover in some of the earlier videos. One of the things that I failed to mention was that in later times, so starting about 10-15 years ago, the MIDI specification allowed us to transfer MIDI data via other cable types. So USB became a real common way to transfer this MIDI data. We could also transfer data via the Ethernet cables. Also, we can transfer MIDI data over a LAN, which is a local area network. So a network where numerous computers are joined together. So essentially in my MIDI situation right here in the studio that I just showed you, I don't have one single MIDI cable set up for my system. I'm using a keyboard that is connected to my computer via USB cable, and then everything else is inside the box. In other words, all my virtual instruments, all of my sounds, my synthesizers are all inside the computer, and so there's no reason for me to have any MIDI cables. Same thing, the MIDI controller data that I was showing you that I was adding to my particular piece of music, all those were transferred over the USB cable as opposed to a MIDI cable. There's also two terms that you'll run across. You'll hear the terms keyboards or controllers, and they are slightly different. The main difference is that keyboards will contain onboard sounds. In other words, they will contain sounds within the keyboard itself. A controller, all it does is transfer MIDI data to another place. So to give you an example, the keyboard you saw me playing in the demonstration was a MIDI controller. There are absolutely no internal sounds that come with that controller. Its primary objective is to create, transfer MIDI data either to another synthesizer or to your DAW or MIDI sequencer. And that's what I have. So a MIDI controller has no onboard sounds. A keyboard usually contains onboard sounds. The final thing is that there are MIDI file types that you need to know about. They are a .MID and a .standard MIDI file. So these two file types allow you to export your performance from your DAW and email that data to somebody else, and then they could import that into their DAW. So to give you an example, I could go in here to Pro Tools and I could say export MIDI, and I could decide, yes, I want to export it as multiple tracks. I don't need to worry about this, and I could export that as Todd's song and place it on my desktop. Then I could easily go and find that document right here, and you can see it's a very small size, 8 kilobytes. That's nothing. And I could email that to somebody else to have them play on this particular piece of music. I could also send it to a notation program like Sibelius or Finale and have my parts printed. So a variety of things that we can do with a standard MIDI file or a .MID file. Some of the other controller types that there are include EWI, which is an electronic wind instrument. There are also drum pads or drum kit controllers. There's mallet controllers for guys who are mallet players, like marimba or vibraphone. There's also MIDI controllers for guitarists, so you can play an instrument that acts like a guitar, but instead of creating actual audio from the pickups in the guitar, it converts that material or data into MIDI data and sends that to a synthesizer. So you can play various types of controllers and use the data that they create to trigger or play a variety of virtual instruments and synthesizers. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching these tutorials and for learning more about MIDI. Hopefully you see its capabilities and how it's affected the music we play and also listen to. We'll see you next time.